Welcome to Andrea Lake 101, the making of a billionaire. You guys, I have such a special Storytime episode in store for you. The question that I get the most when I talk about my businesses, and I say stuff like, oh yeah, I started 14 companies, blah, blah, blah. The banger, the sexy one, the one that always gets people's attention is that I owned the exclusive, yes, that's right, exclusive sales rights on the merchandise from Minecraft, World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, The Walking Dead. Like, what? The actual baller? Are you serious right now? Excuse me, what? Because as soon as I talk about owning exclusive sales rights to all of the merchandise for the largest video games in the world, it immediately classifies me as a certain segment of entrepreneur that is the level of, wait, how the fuck can I do that? That's amazing. I want to go do just exactly that. So grab your popcorn, grab your wine, because today I am going to bring all of the tea. And guess what? There's going to probably be some real good business advice rolled up into there because I learned as I went along. I did not know what I was doing when I was a child, and I got these sales rights. Now, obviously, you guys, I was like 27 or 32 or something when I really started to snap up rights. But now when I'm 51, I think of myself as a child back then. I'm like, wow, baby girl, you had so much to still learn. I'm not infantilizing young women, but for myself, there was not like the availability of easy access to information, 25 years ago that there is today. Boy, was there a ton of trial and error. There was nobody like me who had done $400 million worth of merchandising sales that was just telling people like, oh, hey, this is how you do it. Here's a book. I wrote a book called How to Build a T-Shirt Empire, and I actually talk about exactly how to build a t-shirt empire in that book. But the part that I've never discussed on the podcast was brought up to me the other day by my friend May Fox. I was diving very deep into how it came about of like, how did I get those sales rights? How did I negotiate that deal, etc.? And she was like, oh my God, Andrea, this is fascinating and you haven't covered this yet. In that conversation was born this week's episode. So grab your wine, grab your popcorn, and I will bring all of the tea of how to build an actual t-shirt empire. So if you've been listening to the pod before, I already described the early days of starting my t-shirt company. Go back and listen if you haven't. It's fascinating. I started Anti-Establishment Clothing, which was an offensive t-shirt company that ended up finally getting into Hot Topic through Blink-182 wearing our clothes. It's a wild story, but I've already covered that on the pod. But how did I transition from those kind of offensive t-shirt sales into huge licenses? Good question. I was selling a lot of merchandise of those slogan t-shirts to Hot Topic. I had about 40% of their shelf space. This would be about 2004, 2005, somewhere in there, with t-shirts that just said like losing faith in humanity, one person at a time, or I heart tattooed girls, I heart tattooed boys. I'm bad with names. Can I just call you dumbass? So those slogan t-shirts are doing fantastically in Hot Topic. And I very quickly realized like, oh, wait, there's a bunch of local t-shirt companies in Southern California and of different places that I have good relationships with who are not selling to chain stores for reasons best known to themselves. Generally speaking, it's because it's really hard in the beginning to get the attention of a chain store, to get the meeting, and then to get your vendor number set up. Like lots of things that we're dealing with in Sticker Junkie right now, of getting government contracts, of getting proper permitting, of selling to anything that is funded by a state, including colleges, hospitals, anywhere. There's a whole bunch of regulatory things that we have to jump through. There's a whole bunch of marketing guidelines that we have to make sure that we're hitting the exact parameters of. There's a whole lot of submission processes, etc. And all of it is kind of meticulous. It's quite boring, and I'm very thankful to have Mr. Brian Burling as our Chief Operations Officer who plows his way through our regulatory compliance. Well, back when I was a kid and I wanted to sell to Hot Topic, I had to dig through all of the regulatory compliance, which while it was much, much easier to do back then, it still was obnoxious. It was daunting. It was scary. There were lots of big, scary legal contracts that I had to read through and understood what they meant. And I was so profoundly lucky, you guys, in this. I am going to give you some of the advice that my mentor gave to me because I knew that I was a banger salesperson. How did I cut my teeth on becoming a good salesperson? I did door-to-door fundraising, and I got people to write me a check for $52 or, which would be $1 a week, or $120, which would be like $10 a month, within 5 or 10 minutes of speaking to them at the door. If you ever want to learn really quickly how to do sales, do any type of in-person sales. Sometimes harder even still, do any type of telemarketing phone sales, which I also did when I was a kid in high school. That will really thicken your skin. It will also teach you not to take a no personally. So I had already really honed those crafts at this point, and I was just beginning to build my network. So this would be, like about 2002 or 1999 either. I don't remember exactly when this was that I started Delinquent Distribution, which was my distribution company. I knew that I was selling my shirts to Hot Topic, and I all of a sudden realized that like none of my competitors were, and I didn't understand why. So I ran into some of the guys from Seedless Clothing while I was at Mission Imprintables picking up a rider truck full of shirts, blank t-shirts, to take to my screen printer to get them done because I had to get them done on the quick, so I had to do the delivery myself. Then I had to drive those shirts up to Hot Topic and drop them off. This is wild. And it was like, I don't even know, a couple $100,000 worth of t-shirts. The guys from Seedless were like, who the fuck are you? Because they had heard of me and they had heard of anti-establishment clothing before, but we had not met each other. And I said, oh yeah, I just started a distribution company. Do you guys sell into chain stores? And the dude was like, I don't know, but I'm going to get you a meeting with Shay, who owns Seedless. I said, that sounds perfect. So I go for the first time and I meet with my to-be in the future business partner, Shay McAdams from Seedless Clothing. And I say, oh, hey, I own a distribution company. Actually, I think Shay would be completely fine with me telling this exact story. I go into his super fucking cool headquarters that were like near Rosecrans in San Diego at the time. And he is very distracted. He is very busy. He does not know who I am. He has a million people at all times that want his attention because he's like sort of famous in the counterculture space. Everybody loves Seedless, and like Snoop is wearing his stuff. I think he was just like in a Snoop video. So I come in and I'm this chick that wants something from him. And I believe that he thinks that I am a sales rep of like trying to sell him something instead of a person that can move millions of dollars worth of merchandise for him. So it was just kind of ignoring me. And I'm like, I got other meetings. Like I am so busy at this point in time. And he was being so non-serious in the moment. And so I just looked at him and said, I'm busy, I gotta go. And I turned around and walked away, and he was like, no, hey. And this is after like 10 or 15 minutes of not being able to capture his attention. I was impatient. I wouldn't have done this today. I did this then. I possibly would. It's possibly true that I would, because he was legitimately like ignoring me a little bit and being a little bit rude and being a little bit dismissive. And I was like, cool. And I said something snarky but funny, but I said it in a funny way where I was like, it's cool, but I can sell millions of dollars worth of merchandise for you. So when you're ready for that discussion, you let me know. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, no, I legitimately have to go. Like our time is up here. Maybe it was even 15 or 20 minutes. So just like, let me know when you have time and maybe we'll bounce out of here and like walk around and go get a coffee or something, get out of the office. Cause it seems like you have a lot of stuff pulling your attention at the office, which I certainly understand. It's very hard for me to focus even now when I'm at the Sticker Junkie office. That's why I work from home a lot, because there are so many people working for me and so many things that could require my attention. And it's like, oh, hey, I just need this really quick. Hey, I just need this really quick. But if 5 people in a row need something really quick, that has just absorbed 25 minutes of your time. So it was sort of a situation like that, but I was being snarky and playful about it. When he tried to call me back in, I was like, no, just make another appointment. And I walked out. He never was disrespectful of my time again, ever. So for whatever reason that happened, and then we actually did get together and meet up for a lunch where we segmented ourselves away from everybody else so we could talk. And I started to show Shay some financials for like the quantity of merchandise that I was selling, because in the interceding time, the like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks that it had been between our initial meeting and our secondary meeting, maybe it was 2 months, I don't remember, I had signed on 7 other San Diego and LA local t-shirt companies to be part of Delinquent Distribution. I don't even remember them all. There was like Stoonbunge and Beat Freaks and Dub, and I literally don't remember everybody that we had signed. Some of them went very big, a lot of them did not. And one of them was Jinx, which of course went very, very big. And then I reached out to High Times magazine as well. And High Times was my first true big license. Like the first one that people knew what that was, that it sounded super impressive, and that I knew I was going to be able to get a whole lot of sales for. And I did it just by calling them and saying, oh, hey, I have a distribution company now. And they're like, what? Cool, amazing. Now, I was advertising on the back cover of High Times magazine every other month with ads for Sticker Junkie and anti-establishment clothing. And the ads on anti-establishment clothing on the back covers of magazines were literally like catalog ads. It was literally looked like if you took a page out of my catalog that we used to mail to stores because the internet wasn't really as much of a thing in 1999, with a 1-800 number where people could call and order anti-establishment clothing from. But I have thoroughly canvassed that part of a story in another episode, so I promise I am very quickly getting to the video games. So I'm having all of this success with licensing, and then after I sign these initial 7 people, Shay from Seedless signs with me. I tell High Times magazine that not only do I have anti-establishment, that I'm repping this company, this company, this company, plus Seedless Clothing. And if my recollection is correct, at that time, Seedless Clothing already was doing millions of dollars in revenue, but they weren't really selling to chain stores quite yet, not in the United States, but they had a lot of distribution like in Japan and a lot of distribution overseas in Europe, but just no huge, massive chain stores in the United States. Why? Because it's a pain in the ass and you have to do everything in a really particular way, and they pay way less than mom and pop locations. Of course, now Seedless is a huge international brand and has tons of distribution everywhere. They still exist. I think Shay has a weed line now too, and just a fantastic serial entrepreneur. I think he has an imports company. But back in the day, they hadn't quite broken into huge chain stores in the US who I had amazing relationships with. So we cut a deal where I got 10% sales commission, but I would keep the pricing high for them, higher than they would need to sell it for. So if they said, hey, I need $8 a t-shirt, then I would get them 9, and my commission would be more than covered by the difference in between. And so that was sort of my shtick with my distribution company. So I had already had the licensing rights on 7 companies. Here's what a licensing right looks like, because I still have licensing rights on a bunch of things to this day that I still use and sell to stores. A licensing right looks like an artist or a company has created merchandise. Like my brother is an artist. So I would say to David, hey, I really like that piece of artwork. I'm going to use this piece of artwork. I'm going to sell it to a chain store. You are going to get a 10% commission on gross sales, and I am going to bear 100% of the responsibility of that order. I'm going to factor the order. I'm going to sell the order. I'm going to order the t-shirts. I'm going to pay for the t-shirts. I'm going to get them to the screen printer. I'm going to pay for the screen printer. I am going to deliver them to the chain store, and then I'm going to invoice the chain store and deal with the accounts receivable from the chain store. I am going to fight the chargebacks. I am going to be a responsible person, and all you got to do is create the artwork, you hand me the artwork, and I go sell the artwork. This is the exact same identical structure that I'm using today with our sticker towers, which I am so excited are going to roll out at Pride in San Diego. Our booth looks so cool. I will share all of that on the next Sticker Wars episode next week, because we are in fact going to exhibit at Pride San Diego 2025 next weekend after next, July 18th and 19th in San Diego. And we're going to be releasing our Sticker Towers program, which has an identical commission structure. Why do we pay high commissions to artists? As thoroughly canvassed in this podcast, because people who don't pay artists are dickheads, and I'm not a dickhead. In this industry of clothing distribution, it has very quickly moved to where most distributors pay an artist like $200 or $300, then they can go sell $1 million worth of that person's stuff on merchandise, and the artist never sees anything more than that original $200 or $300. I think that is all of the wrong. That is all of the no for me. And art matters, and artists matter. And because I treat my artists that way, all artists that I speak to, virtually just about every artist that I talk to, wants me to handle their distribution for their merchandise. And back in the day, that was just the same case, because most artists want to focus on just being able to create art. So it's like a very dream scenario for them to be getting paid fairly while simultaneously I'm handling their art. Now, there is people who immediately will be like, oh, but you only get 10%. I'm like, we maintain a 22% profit margin in Sticker Junkie. So if we're paying an artist 10%, that means that they're making 30% of the profit that we're clearing. That's pretty fair for the fact that we are taking 100% of the risk. We have 100% of the contracts. We're dealing with 100% of the accounts receivable, 100% of the employees that are required to actually manufacture the product, pack it properly, and deal with any customer interactions that we might have from the sale. Most artists that I know are like, sign me up, because they don't have to put any cash on the line. They don't have to deal with any of the stress. They just can create art all day and receive this passive income from any merchandise that we sell. And most clothing companies that we were dealing with, even though they were handling their own manufacturing for mom and pop stores, their own distribution to mom and pop stores, because we just didn't do that. We only dealt with chain stores, meaning a chain with over 50 locations. It's just so much harder to deal with companies like that. Like, you actually do need to know your way around legal in the state you're operating in to sell to a big chain store or a big, large corporation. And you actually do need to understand how to negotiate and how to properly do sales, how to cover your ass, how to make sure that you keep a really friendly environment going with your chain stores while simultaneously fighting them on chargebacks without making them hate you and be really playful about it. It is a skill set all of its own. But alas, I am off in the weeds. When am I going to start talking about Minecraft? Yeah, right around the corner. Right around the corner. So I'm selling millions and millions of dollars worth of merchandise, and I get the sales rights on High Times magazine. And I come up with a brilliant idea to do covers of past High Times magazines on t-shirts, because High Times actually owns the licensing rights on those covers. However, it did not occur to me, nor did it occur to High Times, that they owned a limited use license on that photography for the actual cover of High Times magazine. Luckily, they were employing the photographers themselves on staff, I believe, so we didn't have an additional license behind that. This is what I mean in a previous episode where I told you, like, oh yeah, I told my ex-boyfriend not to invest in YouTube, but it was because of layers and layers and layers of potential copyright and trademark infringement and licensing infringement litigation that would come up potentially in different videos that we're airing. So, not wrong, really understand a lot about the law, really understand a lot about licensing. I had to learn it. And my mentor is a JD, MD, a Juris Doctorate, who is also a medical doctorate. Don't feel bad if you don't know that Juris Doctorate means lawyer, but Juris Doctorate means that you're a lawyer. And he believed that every person that was reasonably capable should have a law degree. And he also knew that I would never go to law school, but he would assign me legal book after legal book after legal book to read so that I would have a really strong understanding of business law. And he obviously recommended me a bazillion books on sales, on negotiation, on psychology, on all manner of negotiation and running a business. So when I went in to all of these licensing agreements, I was actually writing my own legal agreements. Do not recommend. I was so lucky that it never came back to bite me in the ass, because I for sure missed things when I was writing legal agreements myself without running them past an attorney, because I did not have an attorney in my companies until the first time I was in litigation, which is when I was like 32 years old. It was wild how many millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of revenue that my companies had generated prior to engaging with a law firm. Maybe I was like 29 the first time I had to use a lawyer, which meant that I had been in business for 11 years and I had done tens of millions of dollars in business before I ever even consulted on a single thing with a lawyer. That's cuckoo pants. That's crazy. Do not recommend. But it did give me like an inundation by fire understanding of the law, which has benefited me and continues to benefit me even until this day, because little pesky legal situations and negotiating things where people are having a disagreement over a contract or something that you have to do if you're a business person. I have said this before. I said this a couple years ago, actually referring to something else, but there have been so many times in business where I have been in situations where I have a dispute where a CEO will not get on the phone and just resolve the dispute and instead will escalate it. And I always just think, if you want to be a CEO, you need to be a fucking grown-up. And you need to get on the phone if you have a dispute, and you need to sort it out with the other CEO. Because when somebody escalates towards you, In a legal matter, it is very natural to escalate backwards towards them. And it's so unnecessary. And then the lawyers just get rich. So I found early in my career that, hey, most things can be resolved with the conversations. That is always my goal. So I'm writing all of my own legal contracts. This comes in as important later. And I have this licensing agreement and I bring it to Shay from Seedless. I promise this is going to be important. And he says, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Actually, you can't produce our stuff. We have a really exacting standard and we've seen all of the things that you're producing and it's great for a mass production type of a clothing line, but like we're higher end than that. So we use super expensive blanks. They were using like, I don't know if it was Bella or Canvas or some really nice back then, maybe American Apparel blank, where most of our clients were using like Fruit of the Loom or Hanes or whatever was on sale, quite frankly, for those really big mass distribution chain stores. So Shay's thinking was like, oh, I don't really know if we can use you because we need to handle the manufacturing ourselves. And a lot of our manufacturing we outsource overseas. So I was like, oh, okay, well, no worries. Do you know what? Let's do this. How about if instead my company acts as just a distributor? Instead of as a licensor, we will be your sales rep and we will take a 10% commission. And you just tell us like whatever price that you want to sell your t-shirts for to a chain store, be realistic. They'll only pay so much. They're not going to pay you $12 a t-shirt like a mom and pop store would back in the day. Obviously, it's a higher price now. We're talking about the late 90s, early 2000s. So be realistic with your pricing. And if they would tell me like, hey, we want $8, then I would go get them 9. My commission would be 80 cents and they would make more than whatever it is they told me they needed to clear for that t-shirt. That's pretty much how clothing distribution works in a nutshell. I hope this isn't too boring, you guys, because the story part is coming up and it is good. So I have 2 kinds of different contracts that I'm operating under right now. I have a straight licensing agreement, which means you just give me the artwork and I go do everything. That's the agreement that I have with High Times, with Stoon Bunch, with Beat Freaks, with many, many other local San Diego companies back then. And then I have a sales distribution agreement that I have written specifically for Seedless clothing. And then I run off and go sell millions of dollars worth of merchandise. They were real happy with me, real fast. They were like, what? I think that for Seedless, I sold like $1 million worth of stuff, like straight banger, just straight out of the gate. I think I got them into Mr. Rags. I'm pretty sure I got them into like Hastings Entertainment and a couple of Tower Records and like a couple other places. I truly don't remember which stores that I got them into, but I do recall it was like very fast, $1 million, like within 6 weeks of having the contract. And all of a sudden I had Shay's 100% full attention every time I walked into the door because I was walking in the door with big checks because I would receipt the check and I would give my clients the 90% and keep the 10% for myself so that I could be sure that I would negotiate properly all the chargebacks, all the whatever, all of the money ran through my company first. So they were thrilled. And I was like, well, if everyone has said yes to me so far for this licensing agreement, I bet I could get bigger and bigger and bigger licenses. But honestly, I was just running as fucking fast as I could to keep up with what we were doing. Very suddenly with delinquent distribution, once I segmented into that company and started to have tons of different artwork that I was offering and tons of different clothing lines that I was representing, I was very, very like overnight selling millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of stuff. Not just millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of merchandise, like super, super quickly. And this is right before I was going on The Apprentice. This is probably like 2002. I already shared the stories of the early days stuff, but then I go on The Apprentice. And if you guys have been following along with all of the podcast, you know that we just covered the episode where I got fired off of The Apprentice. And I'm going to do episodes where like I go to the Ponderosa and I come back for the finale because I was competed in the final task. And then months and months later, the show airs and we go to a live screening of the actual finale that happens live on the air that's at this beautiful theater in Los Angeles. And I haven't gotten to that part of the Apprentice story yet if you're following the Apprentice series, so this is a little bit skipping ahead. But on the morning of the finale of the Apprentice, I get a phone call. Now we're going to take it back to about 6 weeks before this happened. I get a call from one of the guys over at Jinx, which is a video game merchandising t-shirt company that sells like gamer, geek, hacker clothing. Now, mostly these are joke t-shirts that would correlate to the gamer, geek, hacker universe. I started my relationship with Jinx Clothing in 1999. We both started our companies like basically at the same time. So I had some like funny early day internet t-shirts that I was selling for anti-establishment clothing slogans that I had come up with. And one of them was, I saw your mom on the internet. Gotta say, in 1999, 2000, 2001, that was a really popular t-shirt. And there weren't that many clothing companies. And people were really not just like ripping off other people's slogans like they do now. I got that t-shirt into Hot Topic, and I got that t-shirt sort of was all over the place. And Jinx was retailing it on their website. So we started this relationship where I was selling t-shirts to Jinx to retail out on their website because they had their own distribution company at first as well. Retail through the interwebs, which is like a new thing back then. This is a couple years after we're doing business together, and I like own the licensing rights on all of Jinx's designs. And they call me one day and they say, hey, Andrea, how is it that you're doing this licensing thing? Like, how does that work? So I explain how it works, and he's like, do you have like a contract for that? And I'm like, yeah, I have our contract that you've signed. I'll just send you a copy of the signed contract that you have. But FYI, like I wrote this contract myself. I wrote this. And so pass it by whoever you need to pass it by. But I have a strong understanding of the law, but like this is the contract. And my friend over at Jinx called me back weeks later and said, hey, we wanted to try and get the licensing rights for Penny Arcade PAX up in Portland. And they did, in fact, get the licensing rights at Penny Arcade. And they called me back and they're like, that's so great. Like, we're so excited. This licensing thing is so cool. So fast forward to the morning of The Apprentice. I am like getting ready to do a live finale. I am unthrilled. I do not want to be on live television. Like, I am so thankful that this chapter of my life is finished. There is a fascinating story that I will tell on that episode of The Apprentice where a little birdie told me that Donald Trump might ignore all protocol and just hire me that night as the apprentice because he was not happy that he was made to look foolish by firing me. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen, but I did hear that that might happen from someone in production. However, with my understanding of gaming law, which a game show like a TV show like The Apprentice, they actually do need to follow. But this is a very legal episode. I'm embroiled in some legal things right now. Clearly, the law is on my mind. You do actually have to follow gaming law when you are doing a game show because there is a cash prize. And so I think that ultimately it wasn't even a possibility. Otherwise, they could potentially open themselves to the liability of getting sued for breaking gaming law. That is neither here nor there, and I for sure will cover that on the Apprentice finale episode, which will be coming out probably in a couple of months from now. So I get this phone call to my hotel room the morning of the finale of The Apprentice. And it was like such a big deal to be on The Apprentice. Like, one of my girlfriends who was doing PR for me sent me a bouquet of flowers. The guy I was dating got me flowers. It was like an event, and I was getting my hair done and my lashes and my makeup and everything ready, and just like wanted to bang her out this one last thing and kind of tie a pretty little bow on my whole time on The Apprentice. And so I get a call from the guy at Jinx who knows that I'm at the finale right now. And he's like, hey, I hate to bug you, but we got to get out of our licensing deal with you. And I was like, what? No, let's don't do that. And, and he goes, well, we just actually secured the licensing rights ourselves on Blizzard Gaming. And then I realized that we have a licensing contract with you, and we're too big for you now for you to retain our licensing rights. And I don't miss a beat. And because I already ran into this with Seedless, I don't think I would have thought to do this necessarily in the moment because it was just like so hectic and I was so busy and my businesses on all fronts were exploding. I didn't even miss a beat, and I was like, oh, that's okay. Do you know, because I can protect your pricing. Because if you walk in today into the door, into Hot Topic or GameStop or anywhere else that I already have relationships with, and I actually didn't have a relationship with GameStop yet. I created the relationship with GameStop because of the Blizzard Gaming contracts that we received. But I'm like, if you walk in there, what is going to happen is that they're going to take a pencil and a piece of paper, and they're going to write down the lowest possible costs that you can get t-shirts for, screen printing for, all of the tagging done, all of the finishing work, etc. Then they're going to say times 1.3. And they're going to give you a 30% margin. And then they're going to offer you a price commensurate with that, plus whatever commission that you're giving to the video gaming company. And they are going to really chisel down your pricing because you don't have a pre-existing relationship with them like I do. And I explained it just that succinctly in real time to the dude at Jinx who was like, ugh. And I'm like, but I'll tell you what, all that you do with me is you tell me how much you need to make off of this t-shirt. get with your CFO, run your numbers. You tell me what price you need to sell this t-shirt for, and I will make sure that my commission is covered in the spread. So if you need $6.50 for the t-shirt, I'll get you $7.85. I make 70 cents and you make $7.10 instead of $6.50. So you're getting more profit than you would if you went in there and negotiated it yourself. And I also get a commission. He said, that sounds great. And I said, also, I'm grandfathered into great terms. I have a phenomenal relationship with every single chain store that I sell to, which to this day is true. I just love doing business. And I always, to the extent that it is possible, keep as clean of a relationship in every single business relationship that I can. I do not understand people who burn bridges. Generally speaking, the bridges that are burned is because somebody else is being adversarial towards me and I no longer want to work with them. And I still try and leave those relationships in as fair of a way as possible. Now, regardless of whether or not the other person thinks that it's fair, I always try and strike things that are win-wins. And so the only way that somebody leaves me in a scorch the earth kind of way, generally speaking, is if it is by their doing. I will just always mediate a situation to the extent that it is possible, which, as any of you who have lived a whole ass life know, is not always the case. So the guys from Jinx are thrilled, because now they don't have to go and try and establish this relationship. They don't have to take the months and months that it will take them to jump through all the hoops to get a vendor number, to get the classifications and the clearances. I already know how to properly submit, what our MOQs are and what our country of origin is and how exactly it needs to be printed on a label and exactly how EDD compliance needs to get done, or any of the stuff that if I started talking in acronyms, people who are outside of that industry wouldn't understand. They're pleased as punch, especially because I've told them, you tell me what your number is and I'll get you a higher number than that. And so they came back with a really high number for what they needed to make for a t-shirt. So I think I got them like $8.25 or something, which was pretty unheard of for Blizzard Gaming. Oh, and you know what? I forgot a really important part of the story, you guys. It happens. I'm just talking on the fly, and I'm very excited to get out of here and go get lunch with one of my girlfriends at Plant Power in San Diego, which is a vegan fast food place that is super duper yummy. Their chicken Sammy, oh my God. As someone who's been a vegetarian since I was 16 years old, I can truly say that I never thought that I would be able to eat like a delicious chicken sandwich that actually tastes to me like a chicken sandwich. Granted, I haven't eaten chicken in 35 years, but it tastes so freaking good. And their ranch dressing is so good, and their fries are chef's kiss. This is not a paid advertisement. This is truly like my favorite guilty pleasure meal place in San Diego. One of them is Plant Power, which has many locations throughout Southern California. Can't say enough good things. So I am hungry and a little distracted. So the guy from Jinx tells me that Penny Arcade went so great that Jinx, landed the exclusive licensing deal with Blizzard Gaming. And he is like, shook. He is beyond excited. And he's like, we got to get rid of you though, because we realized that we have this competing contract in the way. And I'm like, nay, my friend, I will just take the pretty little sales distribution part of it and I'll be your distributor. And he's like, cool. That sounds amazing. I am meanwhile on the phone with him. The ears of my ex-boyfriend who was in the hotel room with me are perking all of the way up, because this is the dude that I advised not to invest in YouTube. And he owns so many things. He owns the licensing rights on so many things. He owns like part of the fucking all gaming on cruise ships. He owns the rights on how to streamline like oil pipelines so that stuff flows through 30% faster. He owns part of the Russian lottery. I'm not kidding. He owns like chains of compounding pharmacies. He had a fund back in the day that owned lots and lots of things, and his kids were obsessed with World of Warcraft. And he's like, do. I could see him tuning in and being like, Blizzard Gaming? And so I said, oh, you got Blizzard Gaming? And I'm looking at him, trying to communicate to him, like, I don't know what the fuck that means. And I'm starting to try and Google it. And he brings over his laptop and puts in front of me this whole like World of Warcraft thing. I said something to the effect that indicated that I knew what it was. I didn't have a single fucking clue what it was, but I knew that I would have time to understand it right after, not today, not when I'm like about to have to leave to go downstairs to go live on stage to record the season finale of the TV show that I was starring in. It's wild. The timing of it is insane. And I was literally getting called by producers saying, you are late. You need to go downstairs right now. But I'm like, I need to call Hot Topic real fast right now first. So I call Hot Topic and I said, hey, to my buyer, I'm like, hey, homie, I just got the sales rights on Blizzard Gaming. Like, when can I come in and meet with you guys to show you our offerings for this new property that I just secured? And he goes, Andrea, what? He goes, hold please, because we have been waiting for this call. And I'm like, cool, cool. So I had zero idea what Blizzard Gaming was. None. I didn't even know the names of the games that they had. I am not a gamer. I would get so addicted into an MMO, mass multiplayer online game, that there's no possible way. Like, my dogs would be starving, my plants would be dying, and I would just be like, one more level, just one more level. The house would be on fire behind me. There's no possible way that I could get engaged into building a whole world that is that interactive and experiential and walk away from it. I didn't even own a television because I thought TV was a waste of time. There would be a 0% chance that I would get embroiled into a game, not because it doesn't fit my personality type to be a gamer, but because it fits my personality type like too much to be a gamer. I'm like, I would rather just build Legos because I feel like I can get up and walk away from those. I don't have a whole universe constructed that's going to take my time and thought and attention. So I was completely unfamiliar with the space, up to and including that I, in fact, had never heard of Blizzard Gaming. And Hot Topic goes, please hold, gets back on the phone. I am on the phone with the vice president of Hot Topic, as well as the lead men's t-shirt buyer and the assistant to the men's t-shirt buyer and the lead buyer of the women's category, which for some bizarre reason they call juniors. I've never liked it that they call it juniors, but that is what it used to be called. I think it's just called women's now. I don't know if it's still called juniors. It's not. It can't possibly be. But I digress. Wendy, the lead buyer, who is no longer there, takes the call and goes, well, we have been waiting for this, girl. We have a $4 million budget for Blizzard Gaming for holiday. And I was like, let's fucking go. I am nonplussed. I have no reaction. I'm selling so much merchandise at the time, but abso-fucking-lutely not $4 million in one go at a time in one purchase order. That's a massive level up. I might have been doing 10 or 15 million dollars in total annual revenue, which was not a one big swing, 4 million bucks at a time kind of a deal. When it started out, just only for the baby barely beginning, girl, I was getting 10%. So I made $400,000 in a phone call right then, right before I went on stage in my Poketa, because I was just the sales rep. I had no cost on my side other than going and taking the meeting with a client relationship that I already had. I felt like I hit the lottery. I was like, are you kidding me right now? What? Normally, if I would do like $1 million sale, I would walk away with like 200 grand, which is fantastic, but I still had to pay all my employees. Long story short, it was a complete win to be a sales rep for video games. It was an immediate complete win very quickly. That company realized that 10% was too high of a ratio, and they cut me down and then cut me down again in my percentages over the course of the next several years. Even getting a very little piece of a very large pie like that was super mighty fine with me. So I go and take the meeting at Hot Topic, and when I walk in, I'm used to meeting with my two buyers, the men's t-shirt buyers, the lead buyer and the assistant buyer, because the assistants, of course, are the ones that are actually writing the purchase orders. They have a lot of input with the lead buyer, etc. And Hot Topic particularly is one of the best organizations I have ever worked with. The reason that they still exist as a business is that they stay current on trends. And they do that by treating their people fucking amazingly. A lot of the buyers that I work with now, 27 years later at Hot Topic, are the same buyers that I was working with 27 years ago, because people don't leave because they treat people so freaking well over there. So, of course, they've all risen in their positions and they're in the management leadership at that company now. But it is just a great company, and I've always had a super strong relationship with them. But I would usually go into like the small meeting rooms in the front. They're like, nay, my friend, you need to walk all the way through the office to the back, up the stairs into our actual baller big boy fucking conference room. And I'm like, hello, I like this very much. So I go in and every seat is filled, and everyone always, as I thoroughly canvassed before, has known that I am the cookie girl. So I am walking in with platters of food because I knew that it was going to be a lot of people in the meeting. I didn't know it was going to be this many people in the meeting. There must have been 16 or 20 people in that room, and I was the only one representing my side. But luckily, I banged it out of the park. And I did something that most people don't realize that you can do in sales. I didn't pretend that I knew shit that I didn't know. That is actually a really strong position to take, because the Hot Topic buyer said, we need you to come in to this meeting, whatever, in 2 days. So I go into the meeting, I bring my cookies. They've known me for a long time. I'm very charming, and I'm meeting all these new buyers. So like 2 or 4 of them I already knew, and there's like maybe 12 new people that I don't know. And they're all watching The Apprentice, and my season just wrapped. And they're watching The Apprentice, even people that normally that would not be their jam, they're all watching it because they're like, whoa, one of our vendors is on The Apprentice, and she keeps talking about us in interviews. Because of course I was like, oh yeah, I saw a lot of shirts to Hot Topic and like on all my interviews, blah, blah, blah. So I go into this meeting, everybody's thrilled, and I say, hey, you guys, you know that I just filmed this season of The Apprentice. And then I, in a very charming and engaging way, explain to them what I just told you guys, that like, I don't even own a television. If I were to download this game, I would do nothing else but that. I would stop coming up with clever slogans for t-shirts for you, and I would just only be playing this game. That is what I would be doing with my life. So I have not even logged onto it yet. I haven't had time to, because I know that I'll get sucked in as soon as I do. Of course I'm going to, of course I intend to, but like if I mispronounce stuff or if I don't quite know things, I'm going to rely heavily on you guys in this room, because I know that you guys are so on trend with what's popular. This property is so popular. Who in this room plays that game? That is a brilliant strategy, because they would have sniffed me out in 2 seconds if I tried to pretend like I understood something in a video game that I didn't. And then they always respected me. And they put right next to me 2 of the people who were their biggest WoW players. They put right next to me somebody that was super into StarCraft and somebody else that was super into Diablo, as those properties started to pop off more for Blizzard Gaming, and Hot Topic was buying more of those particular assets. And they just worked with me because they knew that I was starting to snap up so many video game licenses that it would be unrealistic for me to understand all of them. And then I took all of that knowledge and carried it forward into my other meetings with chain stores. But man, the business lesson there, I think, would best be said of like, don't fucking bullshit your way through stuff. Like, I mean, to a certain extent and degree, because I was kind of pretending on the phone in that moment with the guy from Jinx. I came clean to them the second that I came to them with $4 million in purchase orders. I was like, you guys know that I don't play this game. You're going to have to help me. You're going to have to get me up to speed. Then one day, after many, 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 many months of owning the sales rights on Blizzard Gaming, it came up in a meeting with my homies, Sean and Tim, over at Jinx, and Brian Burling, who is now our chief operations officer, who was their director of operations, that I had never even logged in to World of Warcraft. And they were like, no, abso-fucking-lutely not. You cannot go into meetings and mispronounce things. And I'm like, that's totally fair. They're like, you have to have a strong working understanding of the game. I'm like, that is true. Let's go. I don't have a gaming computer. They said, come to the office and we're going to segment out 2 or 3 hours of time and you can just come in and play the game. And I'm like, okay, perfect, cool. At this point, I've had the contract for, I don't even know, 4 months or something. And I have done tens of millions of dollars in sales across multiple different stores, including securing global GameStop sales for them. So I had GameStop Australia, GameStop Europe, and GameStop US. So I'm banging it out of the park as a sales rep, banging all of the sales. And they sit me down to play this game for 3 hours. I don't like even know how to walk yet. It is 3 or 4 minutes into this game. I have turned my phone off. They told me to turn my phone off. They knew that I would be on my phone if I did not turn my phone off. Hot Topic called the Jinx office's landline, which was way less unusual. Back then, everybody had a landline. They actually had a super cute, like, Leave It to Beaver sounding voice message on their landline that was hilarious. So it was actually like kind of a pleasure to be put on hold if you were calling Jinx back then, and said, is Andrea there? We're pretty sure Andrea is there and we have an emergency and we need to get these new orders into you right now or they're not going to land by holiday. Can you please interrupt whatever meeting is going on because we need to talk to her right fucking now. Something happened with a receivable. So the guys came in and interrupted me playing this 10 minutes in of playing World of Warcraft for the very first time ever, not even being able to walk. I was very frustrated because when you first start playing a game like that before you know what you're doing, it can be frustrating, especially for me. Like that fits my personality type. So I pick up the landline, immediately I'm embroiled in something that is taking like a half hour. And then I get off the phone, I go consult with everybody there, iron out whatever. I don't remember, obviously, what the issue was. It's like 20 years ago. And I look at Sean, who is the original founder with Tim of Jinx, and I go, yeah, I got way more stuff to take care of, and I'm pretty sure that I can close another couple $100,000 in sales today. Do you want me to stay here and play this? Do you want me just to go sell stuff? And he was like, fucking get out of here. Just go do whatever you're doing because clearly it's working. It's working to the extent that they are chasing you down on our landlines just to see if you even are there because you have to answer this question. And nobody here knows the answer to that question. So you do what you do, and we will continue to play the games. And we can come with you to any meetings that you would like if you want a video game expert right next to you in the sales meetings. So that is how we did it. Welcome to your intermission, friends. Oh my goodness. While it is 1 second later for you, and I was just regaling you with the story of why I never played World of Warcraft. Oh, brother. I had to do hours of legal work. As aforementioned, we had a little legal thing come up. It happens. However, because I've been sort of talking with one of my girlfriends about this and talking with my general counsel about this and a couple other attorneys, I'm like, do you know what would be really fascinating is for me to do a legal review and perhaps to do an interview with a very good friend of mine, Franz Aliquo, who is one of my business partners who I have interviewed in the past, who is a trademark and IP attorney. He is a brilliant. It's very funny, and he also started the 666 burger truck, which was a viral trend burger truck that had the douche burger. It was one of the first videos ever to go viral. He also started Street Wars, which is a citywide water gun fight, super fun, that he hosts in cities all over the world. And he started the rental car rally, which is literally one of the funnest things that you can do. You guys all rent a car and create some sort of suit, like a bunch of people dressed up once as Ghostbusters and other people dressed up as, I don't know, characters from The Walking Dead. And then you get these cars. You either buy an old car and decorate it, or you rent a car, and it's a scavenger hunt essentially across multiple states. This is not a paid advertisement. Rental car rally and Street Wars just happen to be awesome. So I think it would be really fun to have one of the podcasts just be like Q&A with a lawyer that just talks about really common litigation that you should know about, especially as it pertains to IP law. That is super interesting to me, and Franz is really funny, so I think it would be funny, but who the fuck knows? I also went to eat at plant-powered fast food. Also not an advertisement. It was delicious. Highly recommend. The chicken Sammy is my favorite. Again, that is vegan fast food. The vegan ranch dressing does not taste like actual ranch dressing. However, it is delicious. I promise. So strong recommend, 5 stars. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Scene, we're way off in the weeds, which you would expect nothing less, but I did. This is a spoiler alert for the Sticker Wars episode that we will be doing either next week or the week after. I am hosting a badass potluck at my house in San Diego tomorrow with a bunch of my friends from the Summit and TED communities and a couple of other communities. And our new showrunner for our new show is going to be here tomorrow, and my very good friend Andy Stack, who I've talked about on the pod before from YouTube, is going to be coming in tomorrow too, and we are going to figure out like, hey, are we going to continue down this path that we're on of selling The Making of a Billionaire and the Sticker Wars documentary to like one of the large streaming services, or are we going to negotiate a deal with YouTube where we do a large scale self-release? And I am freaking excited because you guys, I still haven't started like posting on social regularly yet. Why? For no good reason. For no good reason. Now, before it was because we couldn't keep up with like if we doubled or tripled or went viral. However, now I should have started it at the beginning of July. So I should have started it 10 days ago and I did not. And so next week it is. I'm so excited to get moving with stuff and to start to really catch traction with the podcast, as well as release the TV show and really start to promote everything and get out there. It is fun times ahead. But with Blizzard Gaming, we had that first banger initial meeting with Hot Topic. I am just immediately selling tens of millions of dollars worth of stuff within that first 4 months of the contract. And when I say Blizzard Gaming went well, wow, it went well. But my services, whenever I'm consulting with a place or I'm sales repping or whatever, I just truly want every single person that I am with to win. So I help them button everything up as tight as they can. So with Jinx, the way that that played out was they were having issues getting artwork approvals from the guys over at Blizzard Gaming. Do you know it happens because, hey, let's be realistic. That's nobody's fault. Blizzard Gaming is selling like gazillions of dollars worth of monthly subscriptions for World of Warcraft and StarCraft and Diablo. And like basically no matter how much we bring them in t-shirt sales, the licensing commission that Blizzard Gaming itself is receiving off of their merchandise sales is not making a difference on their bottom line. So they truly are just doing it for their hardcore fanatic fans. That's why they have merch. And, also to spread the word and for people in public to be able to like wink and nod. Because the t-shirts that would sell well for Blizzard Gaming, for World of Warcraft, for example, were like the ones that said Horde and Alliance or Paladin or whatever sort of inside joke. The Murlocco's tacos sold really well. So whatever inside joke that you would sort of have to be a player of the game to understand, and the more deep the inside joke, sometimes in the case of the Murloc merchandise, the better that it would sell, because you really had to know what property that cute little monster Murloc character was correlated to in order to even understand the t-shirt that someone was wearing. So when Jinx inevitably was having some issues getting their approvals quickly passed, which again, it is just not a top priority to most multi-million-dollar or even billion-dollar video gaming companies to really be promoting their merchandise. Now it is, but a lot of them really understand the loyalty that builds within the players, because this is prime marketing space. If you are anywhere from 8 years old, especially to 28 years old, where you're in that phase of life where people are really wearing a lot of big graphic tees, and now that extends out. I'm 51 and I don't obviously very often wear graphic tees, but sometimes I do. It says something about me, whatever I'm representing on my clothing. We know what sports team you like, or what video game you play, or what your hobbies or activities are, etc. If you're a dog owner, I have a couple dog moms style sort of can I bring my dog graphic tees. It is a huge multi-billion-dollar market, obviously, that t-shirt space. And interestingly enough, I literally just right now was texting with Dan Caldwell from Tap Out, who's my business partner in that t-shirt company course, and was like, oh yes, brother, we are just about to bring this back. We are just about to bring back the t-shirt company course where Dan Caldwell and Matthew Griffin from Combat Flip Flops, aka Griff, and Daniel Damasa from Diepic, and myself and some special guest hosts come in and tell people how to build an actual t-shirt empire and do just millions of dollars potentially in t-shirt sales. Now, it's not guaranteed. You have to have all of the right components in place, but we give the roadmap because there is a roadmap to such a thing, which is why I can walk back into my companies after being gone for 7 or 10 or 12, or in some cases with some of these companies, I've been out of those companies for years, decades, and I can walk in and say, I should have X amount of millions of dollars of revenue in sales by such and such date. So when we launch the Sticker Towers program, I can reasonably expect that by the end of year 2, we're doing somewhere between $1 and $2 million in revenues just from the towers. By the end of year 3, 4 million. By the end of year 4, 7 million, etc. Just this very organic growth that we will have to push for really hard. But there's this particular way to make your t-shirts sell, and we teach that in the course. This is not meant to be any kind of paid advertisement, because the course, in fact, is not for sale as I am recording this on July 10th of 2025. When we would have artwork difficulties, I would walk into Blizzard Gaming myself, because all of the owners of Jinx were men. Virtually all of the men at Blizzard Gaming were men. And I would just walk in there and be nice and be kind and be a woman and not shy. I do not do business in the way a man does business. I do business in the way a woman does business, which gets a lot more done. Bring in a tray of cookies, smile, be kind, be nice. I know that I've shared this with you guys, but I literally cannot emphasize this enough. I actually really didn't realize how attractive I was when I actually was very, very attractive when I was younger. Obviously, that helped. So I'd walk in a little very nice outfit with a little, lower cut top with a low cut tank top and say, I just don't know how I'm going to hit my holiday sales if you don't sign off on the approvals. I'm not going to have enough time to land merchandise into the stores, and your players, they'd be so excited to get a new Paladin t-shirt under the tree, and can't we please get these approvals done? And I had created some of the designs myself. I didn't actually do this particular design, but I came up with this idea for this design, which actually was featured on The Big Bang Theory. It sure was. I don't remember. I think Sheldon wore it. It was a Andy Warhol sort of style of a t-shirt with a bunch of different Murlocs and those Dayglow sort of colors lined up in a similar style that he was made famous in that pop art 60s style. I was like, I did this one myself, and like, look, you are the right person for this. Like, can we just get these signed off on today? You like them, don't you? Do you want me to change anything? No, 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 no. We do like them, and I don't want you to miss out on your holiday sales. And I'm sure that people would have all kinds of comments and feedback, but I'll tell you what, you have to put up with a lot of fucking bull ass shit being a woman. That is no different than anything else. You have to put up with a lot of bull ass shit being a person of color, and you have to put up with a lot of bull ass shit that is very specific to being a man. Everybody has to put up with stuff, but women have to put up with a lot of stuff, especially back then, especially like 20, 30 years ago in business in a male dominated industry. Amount of grace that I had to learn how to maneuver situations with was high. And that's true for all Gen X women. I think that's been thoroughly canvassed. It was a different world. Sexual harassment was like, you couldn't even make a claim for sexual harassment. Sexual harassment just was ubiquitous. My mother, I don't know how she did it in the 70s working in an office. Man, oh man. Anyway, that is a story for another time. So it really did work out well for me. When I would go to like BlizzCon, which is the Blizzard gaming conferences, I would take my buyers. So I would take my favorite buyers from like Hot Topic. I actually really just mostly took them because while we sold extensively to Spencer's Gifts and Miller's Outpost and Mr. Rags and Towers Records and GameStop and all of these stores that I continuously mention, the buyers for those stores weren't actually super hardcore gamers. The buyers at Hot Topic, they would be so stoked to get tickets and to go VIP with the guys from Jinx who control the merchandise. And then Chance, who is our booth guy at Sticker Junkie. I cannot wait to show you our Pride booth. Oh my Lord, you guys, it's coming along like magic. I cannot wait to see how it comes out because we're going to be exhibiting at Pride next weekend in San Diego. And Chance built those booths with his team, of course, collaborative team over at Jinx. And I mean, they were like, had to be 30 feet high, 25 feet high, with big TV screens with huge displays built into the booth. And this is like 2006 or 2007. So it just looked incredible. I mean, there's a multiple hour line, and Jinx also had the licensing rights to run all of the conference specific merchandise. And back then, I mean, we had virtually every single category. So if it was a cool backpack, if it was a cool plush toy, if it was a cool hoodie that year or a cool pair of sneakers, Jinx was producing all of it. And so to go to BlizzCon, that was like a VIP ticket to come with us to that event. And I'll tell you what, myself and every other one of the very few women that were in there, maybe 10%, we felt like supermodels walking through BlizzCon. And I already am 5'10", and I was wearing like 4 or 5 inch heels. Now I'm 6'2". I had just been on national television. And man, you cannot even imagine. I would laugh. And one of the buyers that I would go with a lot was a gay guy. And he was like, girl, you are looking, I'm even telling you, you're looking smoking hot. You are ridiculous. I truly, I'm not even joking. I think that that's probably the most attractive I ever felt in my whole life was going to BlizzCon. It just was really fun. And because it was so many sweet men. I love me a geeky guy. The men that I date have some weird habit that they want to do for 2 or 3 hours. I shouldn't say habit, I mean to say hobby, just like me. So while I'm like watching The Walking Dead on repeat and building Legos or checking out some new show like Department Q that I just watched or listening to the Morbid podcast and building Legos, my guy is like playing Dungeons and Dragons or has some video game or has something that he likes to do that I'm like, okay, cool. You go do game night with your homies and I will build Legos. So I did fit really well into geek culture because happily myself, I always just was a nerdy kind of a gal. I had so much fun. I don't have much more to say about the video gaming license experience because I'll tell you what, you guys. When I got the sales rights on Minecraft, it wasn't a big deal. Jinx had the sales right on everything. Everything. They got all video games because they were so OG and so legit, and they were gamers. A lot of the inspiration, as you can imagine, for Sticker Junkie, for what we're building at Sticker Junkie, for the culture that we're developing at Sticker Junkie, of course it comes from what Sean and Tim created at Jinx. How could it not? Like, they had the coolest video, and there was a lot of other people on that team that were awesome as well. Just Sean and Tim were just the main owners, so I know I'm allowed to say their name, and they're awesome homies. The corporation that they put together, it was a big company, but it had the feeling of like a family. There was different video game contests all the time and different nights where they would get together and play different like board games. They had a ping pong table. I was playing ping pong with them one time, and I'm fine at ping pong. I'm fine at anything that requires hand-eye coordination because I was a professional fire dancer, which is a juggling toy. But I got cocky, and I'm really pretty good at shooting pool. And so I got cocky because I was pretty good even though I never play ping pong. And I did not realize that Sean's like a champion ping pong player. And just immediately and I like slammed it on him and he was like, I was being nice to you until right now. And then I don't believe I've ever been beaten so badly at a game. He annihilated me. He wiped the floor with me. Not hard to do because I was not particularly good. And he was like amazing at ping pong. We had so much fun. The level of fun that I had when I would like go into Seedless Clothing and their amazing corporate headquarters, or go into Jinx and their amazing corporate headquarters, or Tap Out, or any place that I was sort of welcomed to come and go as I please and did a lot of business with, they informed the way that I wanted Sticker Junkie to look and to feel. So as I'm sort of reopening delinquent distribution right now, it's so fun for me to think back in the early days of clothing because we were just kids having fun. And when I had the sales rights on Minecraft, it was early. It was like 2000, I don't even know, 8? Maybe I could be very off on the years. No, it was maybe 2009 or 10, or I don't know, until about 2014 or 2016 or something. So I had them up while I was living at the Winston house. And I don't have any really very cool stories to tell about Minecraft. I never had to go to their headquarters. I didn't ever go to Minecon. I didn't need to. I already had all of the established relationships, and I had very little to do with the internal corporate structure at all. I wasn't really communicating with them because they just, quite frankly, were sending over the artwork approvals directly to somebody else at Jinx because Jinx had gotten so incredibly large that they weren't pulling in an outside sales rep who had my own company to help like move things along. None of us were in the scrappy hustle mode anymore. So my experience with Minecraft is like I would just go into the corporate headquarters of all of these large chain stores and bring very cool merchandise. And they would say, yes, we want to buy that. We want an exclusive within our store. Can you please make sure that this exact same identical shirt isn't like right across the hall at GameStop, Hot Topic would say that, or Mr. Rags or whoever else was in the mall who also was carrying Minecraft merchandise. And so I was really, really good about just like absolutely yes, we absolutely will not cross-sell the designs. And because I had an exclusive right on it, which means that in order for Minecraft merchandise to get into any store for those few years there, it legally had to go through my company. And then I think they like broke it off and gave Threadless a little license for something. And I don't remember, but the license ended up started to get fractured and split to different people. And I was still holding the price super high for Jinx because we had an exclusive license. Well, as soon as the license is not exclusive, there comes price competition. So I would be in the pricing negotiations all the time with teams at myriad different chain stores. And they would be like, we are sure that you can sell this to us for less. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I just really can't. I don't know. I don't know why. Because seeing they had an intermediary, I was easily able to protect the price because they couldn't get out the paper and pen with me. They used to call me the rich man's Felicia Day because they could not like price negotiate against me. And Felicia Day was this fabulous, like, I think she started out as a VJ actually, and then became a really big streamer, one of the first early day influencers, and really familiarized people with a lot of video gaming merchandise. And I was deep in that industry too, and there just were so few women. So anyhow, that's basically the story of Minecraft. I just sold a fuck ton of merchandise. And I was visiting this girlfriend of mine up in Seattle, and I just had a ton of Minecraft merchandise shipped up because her kids were the right age for that. They were like, whatever, it's, 11 and 14, let's call it, or something. And we were at dinner at her beautiful Estasia badass baller entrepreneur chick. And she goes, well, Andrea, actually, she owns the sales rights on the merchandise for Minecraft. And kids that age, they might have been like 12 and 14. Mom is not cool, and mom's friends are not cool, even though this girlfriend of mine is incredibly cool, and I am pretty cool too. And all of a sudden they were like, what? So I called down to Jinx and asked them to do like an amazing box of merch. And I had never done that because I didn't have a lot of friends that had kids that were the right age. Like a lot of my friends are a little bit younger than me. And if they did have kids, they were like 2 or 3 years old. And man, her kids were psyched. So I did get to have a really coolness factor when I owned those sales rights specifically with like teenagers, because Minecraft was one of the first video games where it really felt like there was way more equal amount of boys and girls playing and of men and women playing. I digress, but that is the story of how I sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of merchandise. And I know I threw out this very big number at the beginning of $442 million in revenue. That's an estimate of the combined total of all the revenue I've ever done through all 14 of the companies I've ever owned, which sounds like a very impressive number until you realize that I have been in business for 32 years, which means that for a long time, I was averaging, like $10 million or $12 million in annual revenue. And please remember, because some years it was way more in the big spike years of Minecraft, that's where a lot of the dollars came in. But please remember, I was getting a very, very small piece of a very, very big pie. And it was spread over the course of a lot of years where I had a lot of employees and, a nice profit margin. But whenever you hear of somebody making like all of these gazillions of dollars, it doesn't really break apart how the financials actually work in a company, which is why on the Sticker Wars episode, I am dedicated to sharing real financials. And it's why I share my financials with my staff at Sticker Junkie so that they understand like, hey, yes, we're making $2 million a year right now in revenue, and we are falling short of what we need per month. We have to double our sales in the next couple months in order to be in a place of true comfort. However, the path laid ahead of us looks like that is just exactly what we are going to do. And by this time next year, we should be at 10 million in annual revenue, which is our target. We are coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Stickergate, which I'm so excited about. It's on Monday. We obviously have some secret surprises planned for that. And we're ready to 5x our sales again. We 5x'd our sales last year as a result of Stickergate, and we literally had to put a cap on our growth so that we could expand and get all the machinery landed and get everybody trained and get all the licenses done and get all the legal work done, which is an exhaustive amount of legal work for the state of California. And for all these new huge clients we have to run tons of stuff past their corporations to get all the legal licensing in place, etc. It's no different than anything else that Brian and I have ever done, because please remember, Brian helped Sean and Tim and the C team over there to build Jinx. He was their director of operations. That's our chief operations officer now. So it does feel like such a fun throwback, amazing episode to have filled you in on what it looks like and sort of how we negotiated all that stuff. And I'm sure that we appeared as if we were the adults in the room. And I'm sure right now it appears like we're the grown-ups in the room. But we just kind of all felt like little kids having fun, and none of us really knew exactly what we were doing, and we all figured out what we were doing along the way. And now, when those Gen X entrepreneurs like me or Brian or some of the millennial entrepreneurs are getting back in and rolling up our sleeves with all of the new implementations that we have at our disposal now with technology, less the old school like marketing, customer service, understanding different ways to shift things around, especially in a merchandising space, I can't wait to see how big we grow our sales, because it is starting to feel again like that little kid type of a feeling. And I am so fucking here for it. I cannot wait to see what goes on with Sticker Wars in the very soon coming months. I'll see you next time. I actually am going to record one more episode right now. What am I going to record for you for next week's episode, you guys? I am going to talk about the Ponderosa. That is where you go when you get fired off of one of Mark Burnett's reality TV shows. It's called the Ponderosa for the people on Survivor. It is also called the Ponderosa for the people on The Apprentice. This is where you're fired now. So nobody's got cameras on you. You all get to decompress together with all the other fired candidates. You get to sort of compare notes. For the most part, well, I'm not going to even start. Stay tuned next week and you will see that episode. Grab your wine, grab your popcorn, and I will bring all of the tea on next week's episode of Andrea Lake 101, The Making of a Billionaire. See you next time, guys.